Welcome to the Hard-Won Wisdom Podcast with best-selling author Fawn Germer and corporate innovator Michelle Brigman. Come here weekly for career and life-changing conversations with some of today's most influential thought leaders, senior executives, and trailblazers who will share their mentoring wisdom. This podcast is brought to you by the Women's Leadership Network.
Hi, I'm Fawn Germer.
Yeah, I'm Michelle Brigman.
And this is the Hard-Won Wisdom Podcast. Today is really going to be the beginning of a new year for many of you, but we are spending some time looking back at what we learned over the past year because it was really a lesson-filled year for us. And we opened it up to readers through Facebook, and boy, did we get a lot of wisdom from you all too. So without further ado, we do have much to do here, right? So, hi, Michelle.
Hey, Fawn, what a year. Like, congratulations. We went through a whole nother...
We went through hell. I mean, this was not an easy year.
No, it wasn't.
No, but...
It wasn't. But we're coming out of it.
Yeah.
Been good. Like, we've learned a lot, which we'll talk about. And I'm really excited about 2020.
We had each other, right? Yeah. Was okay. But we also have a lot of insights from other people. And so what we're going to do is share a little of what they've learned, what we've learned, and then just see where this ends up, because there's a lot. And actually, you could write a whole book on what people submitted. So for those of you who submitted, thank you. If we don't get you, it may mean that we're doing it in a future episode or something, but everything was great. So thank you for that. And, well, look at the first one that I'm looking at is somebody quoting me, but the fact that it sticks out with her is really perfect for the end of the year. And it was Catherine Dickinson Carlson, who is beloved to one and all as Kathy Carlson, saying, "Every shitstorm ends," which is my mantra. And that is really what happened this year.
Oh my gosh, Bond. Well, you had your accident.
Yeah. That was, well, it carried into this. And then all the fallout was a disaster. You had, what do you want to say happened to you? I don't know how you want to describe it.
Well, let's see. I've been challenged with relationships, friends, more intimate relationships, lots of changes in terms of my career, like where I'm headed with that. I mean, there's been a lot. And when it felt like chaotic and the light wasn't coming through, or I wasn't having a lot of clarity, that was always something that came back to is this, the shitstorm will pass. Like, everything's going to be fine.
Yeah. I mean, I started the year off, and because of that head injury, they said it looked like I had early onset dementia or Alzheimer's. And being the daughter of an Alzheimer's patient who really suffered for a very long time with it, that was really bad news. But I got through that, and I don't have it. So that was great. And I took a job, remember that? That blew. And it was terrible. But I lived through that. And then now I'm just back in my life. My business is doing well. I'm getting the speaking. I'm doing what I want to be doing. So, but boy, did I have to drudge through some really, really tough quicksand too. But you are, I worry about you because you've got a lot on your shoulders. So
there's a lot right now, but that's okay.
I know.
I'm not alone in the journey. And that's one of my big lessons is, oh my gosh, no matter what, there's a incredible tribe of people around that help you with good, help you when things are good and help you when things are a struggle, carry the load for you, stand by you, but then also are there to cheer and celebrate and guide and give you wisdom. I mean, how awesome is that? You just have to let people know. You just have to let people know. You need
I learned that in my big year of grief when everybody died, is that I kept thinking, well, why is this person not checking in with me? And some of these were really close friends that were dropping the ball. And I've learned over time that when your friends disappoint you, you have to tell them. Don't test them by expecting them to rise up and do what you expect. Tell them what you need. And then if they don't, then get mad. So, but what?
And if they don't,
Didn't get really bad. But I like this one bit from Tara Flanagan from Colorado, who says, plan as one may, the universe plans as well. And no kidding, right?
And so many of our listeners are these high achieving perfectionist planners, A personality women, and think that we all have to have a plan for everything. So this one is a tough one. And if you can break through and realize that, okay, it's great, have a plan, know where you want to go, but don't be shocked, and be able to be resilient and embrace it whenever there's a sharp left turn that hits you that you weren't expecting.
Well, motivational speaker Fawn Germer always says, by all means, have a plan. It's the greatest piece of fiction you'll ever write. But, our first guest on this podcast was Shelley Broader, the CEO. And Shelley had what definitely appeared to be a benign brain tumor. And because of infection and problems with that crackerjack awesome team at one of the major medical centers in this country, she had a big infection, almost died. It was a big thing, but that's it. You have your plan, may not work that way. And, doesn't that goes with,
well, let's say that Shelley is doing great.
Oh yes, we need to say that.
Just where that landed. Mm-hmm.
And Therese Strandberg wrote in and says, never take your health for granted, live each day to the fullest. And Therese, she's awesome. And this past year, she's been fighting cancer. And she's now on the other side of the radiation. So that's looking better. But it's, the thing about your health is you're living your life, not thinking about it when everything's going fine. And then sometimes you get whacked upside the head. And in a situation where you realize it doesn't matter who you know or what resources you have, you're really at God's mercy.
Isn't it fascinating? Oh, so go ahead.
No, let me hear what's fascinating.
I was going to say, isn't it fascinating though, how with your health particularly, like we all know this, but it's fascinating to me that it will take some crisis or catastrophe. The pain has to get so great for us to go, you know what? I need to take better care of myself. It's interesting.
Yeah. And
it's like this.
I think that when people have those real health wake ups, it's often too late to fix it. And it's no secret, Michelle, I'm a little bit older than you. And so I see people who are a little bit older than me, or even some my own age, which isn't that old people. I'm not a total dinosaur, but how people are, they get older and they start talking about their health. And I couldn't figure it out. Why are these people getting together and they're talking about, my lumbago or whatever? It's like their aches and pains. It's all you hear about. And when I was young, I went to a family function and I asked, and then the relatives were on a tear. My cousin looks at me and she goes, why did you ask? Because it just launched into it. And I couldn't figure out why it is that people talk about it so much, because there's always something you can complain about, I guess. And I think it's that people become shocked that their body revolts against them as they age. And it does that. And that's why, listeners, if right now you're not suffering for something, go use your body. Go use your body. Don't make excuses. Don't do it because you need to get exercise. Do it because you have the pure joy of being healthy. So go live your life and use this, because things will change. They will. They change with everyone. And so that moment comes, and that's definitely some wisdom I've seen watching them.
Well, it's a great piece of advice in terms of you're not doing it so you can meet that New Year's resolution and you can lose the 15 pounds. You do it so you can live fully. And whenever you're focusing on use your words, right? Using your body in a way that brings you joy and pleasure and fun, then it's not such a burden, and it's not something you dread or kick the can down the road thinking, oh, I should, because you're doing it in a way that really fills your soul.
Yeah.
And
well,
keeps you healthy.
I think about that all the time, because there's this one trail. I do trails every morning, about 4 miles in this park near my home. And I remember when my aunt was still alive, I had called her, and she was talking about, being in assisted living and how suddenly every time she wants to go do something, she needs to call someone to give her a ride. And she was waiting on my cousin. She goes, you just don't know what you have when you have the ability to come and go. And so whenever I'm on that trail, I always think about her and how I have the strength and ability to walk this trail whenever I want. And that extends to driving my car. And I know most of you haven't thought about it when you're in the car, right? You're just driving. And sometimes you're driving, you're not even thinking of where you're going. You're just driving, right? But the privilege of being able to come and go is so huge. And I try to stay mindful of that. All right, I love this one from Linda Campbell. And this is somebody who lives a life of wisdom. But I like this one. She goes, date yourself. Learn what you like and what sparks your joy. Every love song is directed to you. Give all the energy and care you would on someone else to yourself and fill your cup.
Amen, Linda.
Isn't that beautiful?
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's it. Everybody, you know that you've got a big date in 2023 and it's with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good one, because I don't think people celebrate that enough.
No, I think particularly with women, again, it comes with guilt, shame. It means you're selfish and self-centered. And that's the first place that you have to really pour into yourself if you want to be able to sustain and perform at your best and show up at your best and be the best partner and parent and friend and manager, whatever it is, right? You got to have a good relationship with you.
There was a woman in an event that I did once. She had a bunch of kids. And she said that whenever she found time for herself, she'd just look at her husband and she goes, it's time for me to get some me time. I love that. Because she was honoring the fact that she deserved to have that time for herself. And I do know a lot of people who haven't got a single minute for themselves. And I do think most of us, if we get on top of time management, really get to be vigilant about it, do have more time than others. But that's a decision you make.
But it's a deep challenge, right? It's more than time. It's, have you learned and is it acceptable to have a healthy relationship with yourself? And so many of us were taught that having a healthy relationship with ourselves is not what a good daughter, spouse does. Everybody else should be first. Give that up for your kids, your parents, that's what we're taught. So it is a huge mind shift.
Is it taught that much still? I mean,
I think it's taught through action.
You're in Texas, so I know it's taught more in Texas, but do you think that we're moving away from that a little bit? I mean, it seems kind of.
I think we're moving away from it some, but now I think the big challenge is, because if I think about even my daughter, right now, the big challenge is it's superficial, it's maintenance stuff. It's not true self-love. Like if you look at what they're following on social media, what they're talking about, it's not it's little maintenance things that everybody needs. Take a time out, get a massage. I'm talking about deeply connecting with yourself, because if we were teaching that, then you wouldn't have the mental health issues that people are having. Emotional health. It's because we don't have healthy relationships with ourselves.
Wow. Well, that's something definitely to work. Yeah, to work on this year for sure. Oh, I like this one. Julie Madison. God will put you where he needs you when he needs you to be there. Okay. Now I know some people don't like when we give God a gender, but I do believe God is male, because I don't think this world would be set up like this if a woman had been doing this. But okay. But that it reminds me of those years when my mom was so sick and I was traveling so much, and I needed to know that I was going to be a good daughter. And that's really hard, particularly, as a speaker, the days you're working, you're making a lot of money. And then you might not work for 2 weeks or make anything, or a month, right? So when you're working, you got to be working. And I was always scared something really big would happen when I was on the road. And my prayer became, God, let me be where I need to be when I need to be there. And I must have said that hundreds and hundreds of times. And in the end, I was right there, right where I needed to be. And I just had to have faith that I would be right where I needed to be. And if I wasn't supposed to be there, I wouldn't be there. And, but I like that God will put you where he needs you when he needs you to be there.
Now, it doesn't say you tell God that you want to be somewhere when you think you need to be there. Call that out, because so many, I think people get frustrated because we think we know when is the best time for us to show up in a situation or to be confronted with the situation. And what I like about what Julie said is the fact that you're not in charge. So you have to be able to surrender and trust and go on faith.
All right. But is that exclusive? Because I don't think just because I think there's a certain energy to the universe, which I know many people don't believe that, and I don't condemn you. You believe what you want. I believe what I want. But I don't think there's a crime in also saying, hey, I need to be here, even if it is just for me.
Well, no, I'm not questioning that. I'm saying the fact that you just may find you're not in charge.
Oh yeah, we're not in charge.
That's what I'm talking about. Those moments where you're like, this is how it's going to be, and it doesn't turn out that way, and then we're pissed. Right?
Shouldn't that be the number one piece of hard-won wisdom?
Yeah, we're not in
charge. Gosh, too bad, right? Wouldn't it be? But whatever. Life is always unfolding, and which leads us to Danielle Jordan's big wisdom, which young woman, West Point graduate, I love her. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. That is where the most growth lies. Do something hard because it will be so rewarding. So be comfortable being uncomfortable. And people, that is where the growth happens. And I'm sorry, if it's easy, everybody would do it. But when it's hard, you just do that thing, take the next step and the next, and then you master it. But your discomfort zone is your zone of greatest success. And you just have to kind of trudge your way through that. Thoughts, Michelle?
Yes, on this one. So I love this one because I think this one speaks to one of my big lessons this year. And it's that whole do it ugly. Because again, I think we're talking to a lot of women who think that they have to have everything perfect.
Right.
And then you do it. But learning that it gets better along the way and you just have to start. And dang it, is it uncomfortable? I mean, that I lived that this year. I've lived this year. And it's funny how.
Well, give us an example, Michelle.
Well, I mean, even like with my own business, right? I was trying some new things. Like I had done my cohorts for a long time. And then I was trying something with like I was doing courses. I launched 2 courses this year, online courses. And I wanted to have everything just perfect and all the right landing pages and all the right social media and all of the right content. And it was funny because during one of my courses, I had some live events. And the first one, I had everything planned out, live event. I'm doing this presentation and I got off the phone and I'm like, it was on a Zoom, it was virtual. And I'm like, oh, that didn't feel as good. So the next time, like, screw it. I didn't wing it. I was prepared, but I had like a whiteboard and a marker. And I spent that whole session in my next live letting the conversation go where it needed to go. Yes, I had a map. I knew where I needed it to end up, but I let it be much more fluid and neutral, or fluid and just kind of random, and trust it. And I can't write well on the right whiteboard. I mean, it was just like a hot mess. However, the content and the conversation was fantastic. It was ugly and it was so much better.
Do you know, like with my speaking, some of my very best speeches occurred because the AV went down.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a PowerPoint up there, and I didn't have my roadmap. All I had was me. And I think what you're talking about, that, and which other people are probably experiencing, is that when you have to rise up and everything is not nailed down and perfect, it takes a degree of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
And isn't that wonderful when you realize, yeah, I do have the confidence and I can do that, because then you know you can do it again and you can do something bigger. And I had a major event once, and I went in there and I'm dress rehearsal. Right before we go in there, we did all the AV, everything was perfect. And then they had a system update of some source. So there was nothing. And I have this big dramatic video that introduces me to the stage with powerful music and stories of famous failures. And it's nowhere, right? There is nothing and nobody knows what to do. And I'm like, well, and I went out there on stage and I acted it out. And everybody was laughing, and it was really a lot of fun. But you have to know inside of you, whether it's a presentation or anything else, that you're good enough.
Yeah.
Right. Remember, that was a pretty big moment, I thought, this year in the podcast with Sarah McDonald, when you asked her about the imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
and she said she had felt it every day for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And here's this real superwoman admitting that. And for you people who are listening who may feel a little insecure or may tell yourselves that you're undeserving or less than, I promise you, you're not. Half of us are just faking it anyhow, right? And then the other half of us have faked it so well for so long, we realize maybe we're okay. So you just keep going. Just say, okay, and then you look at what Stacey Bakauskas says here: baby steps will get you anywhere you want to go eventually. Be patient. Yeah. So it's just that idea that, you just keep doing one more thing to move yourself towards your goal, and you're going to get there sooner or later. It will happen.
Yeah. That's what I love doing. It's like I do my, my vision board and my goals for the year always on my birthday. And then I do like 90-day goals, and then I do weekly goals and daily goals. And I love that process because it helps me not feel so overwhelmed with the big thing I want to accomplish. And it's like doing those little baby steps every day. And if I just focus on those little baby steps, I am shocked at how much further I get. It's unreal. And
well, maybe this is where we should have our little note, because Michelle and I are working on a couple of things that you all can enjoy. And she's saying something that's in this packet that I've got for free. It's the Work Life Reset 2023 workbook. And that's really about setting up those baby steps and figuring out what it is that you want so that you get out of your rut and move forward. And I'm going to have a lot of links for that. Just hit Fawn Germer on LinkedIn, and you will be able to find links to it, because it really doesn't take so long to plan out your life. It takes a lot more energy to not do it. It's kind of like your closet, okay? And Michelle knows what a mess I am, so she can only imagine what my closet looked like. And we don't need to share any pictures with you all, but let's just say it was pretty bad. And for probably 2.5 years, I've avoided cleaning it, because all these shirts were in there and they were all wrinkled, and then everything was stuffed in there. And I just thought, this is going to take weeks. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And then I just decided I'm going to give it an hour. I'm just going to give it one hard hour. I'll work really hard for an hour, and then in a week, I'll do another hour. Well, I did that 1 hour, and I realized that if I was just as focused, I probably could get done in another hour. It probably wound up being 3 hours. But the freedom of having a clean closet and taking literally a truckload of clothing to Salvation Army and saying, here, it's your problem now, right? And just that I could breathe in that space. And that really is the same thing that's going on if you have not taken a minute to make those steps and organize everything in your life. It's like, you are your closet, right? So if you keep not doing the things that are going to get you out of your rut, that are going to stop you from settling, that are going to put you on course, you're spending more anxiety and worry than it would take to just fill out Fawn's workbook and fix your life. Agree?
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yes. It's just that one less thing that's taking your energy. Well, okay. So tell us again, what do you have going on?
So
Tell us.
it's a 10-page workbook that's just a work-life reset. It's free, people. I'm like not making $1 million off you doing it, downloading. You have to give me your email, of course, but it's a 10-page worksheet where you go through this and you come up with what matters to you, how you're spending your time, if you're honoring your values, and just really look at how you're living your life and how you want to redirect your life. And my goal at this point in my career is to make sure that all of you stop settling, because people are living lives that are not making them fulfilled or as joyful as they could be. And so it's not that hard to change it, but you just have to take that first step. So this is that first step.
I love it. I'm so
Tell
glad
us
you're
about
doing it.
your thing.
Well, I have a self-love, self-care course that's always on, that's actually live right now. And LinkedIn's a great place to connect with me, or you can sign up for it on michellebrigman.com. But the next big thing I'm excited about is I'm starting up a small group cohort in January. So it will be like around 10 women, and we'll meet for 8 weeks. And the sense of community is amazing, but really it is about coming in there with peers who are your trusted advisor, and we're working through different curriculum to just get your life balance back, so you feel do a little bit of what we were talking about before, just loving yourself and how to learn to do that. Because so many women I'm talking to are exhausted, they're burnout, they're stressed, they just want to throw up their hands and walk away. And I'm just saying, no, there's a better way. And that's something I want to help people take back control and sit in the driver's seat.
I think something I've watched in you in the last year, which is really, I'm really proud of you for that, is you're asking yourself the really hard questions of, you've done things that have created such phenomenal success, but have they added up to what fills your soul?
Yeah.
And in some ways you've said no.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot of courage to ask that and do that. And I love that you're helping other people go through that, to come up with the plan so that they have that kind of fulfillment too. So those are the things that Michelle and I are working on. And both of us are on LinkedIn. I'm Fawn Germer. She's Michelle Brigman. That's what we say every time. I'm Fawn Germer. But yeah, come to our LinkedIn page, add us, check those things out. And my webpage is fawngermer.com, and yours is michellebrigman.com, right?
That's right.
And you've got two.
No, I'm just, everything's on michellebrigman.com.
Well, that's called branding. Good.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Now, I did notice in some of this hard-won wisdom from our listeners, a number of people talking about this thing we've discussed before, which is friends letting them down.
Mm-hmm.
And making the decision when enough is enough. And I thought how hard it was, I think, for some of them to share that. I've certainly been through that. I think the thing that I've learned over time when friends do that is that you wait a year and then you look at the people who've come into your life when those other people vanished, and you always wind up ahead. Have you noticed that?
So I've never heard you say that before. And yes. Yeah. I have had some of the most amazing people show up in my life in the past year. But I would say, have been open to receive them as well.
It's hurtful when people disappoint us. And Michelle, you know this one story, and people, I don't need to give you every detail, but I had a very, very, very close friend who ultimately, on more than one occasion, really proved to not be a very good friend at all. Okay? Somebody I still love and care about, but it was not a good friendship. And at one point, when I finally reached the point of forgiveness, because I hadn't listened to Mary Greco talking about how to do it quickly, but it took me a while to get to forgiveness. And I was sitting on this cliff in Utah, and I was camping, and there were all these shooting stars. And I remember my friend Lisa Kruckeberg was down there by her tent, and I'm watching these shooting stars. And one went from all the way over here, all the way across the sky. And I gave that to the other friend, ex-friend, who had broken my heart. And I go, that one's for you. And that was the moment when I realized how much had come into my life when I had lost something that really wasn't all that good for me. And how wonderful it is to, to just have time to tell us it's okay. People are going to let us down, but then there are good people, right? And one of the reasons that I love this podcast so much is I get to see Michelle. And Michelle is a great, true friend. And she's somebody who steps in when the others aren't there. And it's like people, it adds up. It all adds up to more. So you just have to look at it a little bit differently.
I love you.
Oh, I love you too.
How funny is it that all those years ago, our meeting and just,
right?
And I mean, stayed in touch for all those years, but it was just sort of, check in. And then here in the last couple of years, like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for you. You just make my life better.
There are so many moments, and this is what the definition of friendship is, right? Where you will say something and I'll be like, huh? Or I'll say it and you'll be like, remember we had that one conversation early on about an RV, right? And your face was like, huh? And it's like when you have friends who bring new perspective, treasure them. And that I have learned this in life. Friendship is not a quid pro quo experience. You don't always get what you give to a given friend, period. Should be, right? Don't you think if you give of your heart and soul and you take care of people that you're going to get back what you give? But it doesn't really work like that. But what happens, the quid pro quo is you get it from someone else. And that's the beauty, is having that awakening of who your soulmates really are and what they mean to you. And that does change over time. But Michelle, I sure hope you're with me for a very long time.
We got work to do together.
I know. All right. Kate Brassfield. Okay, she's a real rock star. Kate has had a daughter. She's got 2 girls that have had severe illnesses. I mean, this is a mom who has to give and give and give, and she is a mama bear who rises up with more commitment to her children than you could ever imagine. So that whatever is thrown at you and at her, and I cannot divulge everything, but it's massive. She's ready. And her one daughter just got off the heart transplant list because finally something worked. I mean, but this little girl's had so many surgeries. It's just, there's so much going on. And Kate said, perspective. Some things are big things. Some things are small things. Know the difference. And do you ever notice sometimes the things that seem like they're so big are really small when you get on the other side of them, and vice versa?
Yes. I had somebody give some advice that said, look at a situation and think, how important is this going to be in, 4 weeks, 4 months, 4 years? Just as a way to sort of calibrate, is this really that big of a deal? And I know as a parent, this one has come into play for me when I want to freaking lose my mind about something that happens. And then I have to go, well, wait a second. How important is this going to be in just a short amount of time? And most of the issues that I have, or I want to freak out about, they're really not that big of a deal.
Well, if you think about, what was it that you were worried about 2 years ago?
Yeah, I don't even know.
You'd have to really
I have to think.
Right, really sit down like, what was that? And like in my career as a journalist, because it's so far, I can remember certain things. There were certain times when they gave me assignments I didn't want to do, and they were just so big, and I can barely remember what they were. And that these big things that consumed me all those years ago, they don't even exist in my memory, you know?
Wow.
I like this one from Elaine Edge, who is a really special person. She goes, "It's never too late to start over. I thought I was too old to go to nursing school. I was in my 50s and would be 56 before becoming a nurse. I finally realized I was going to be 56 anyway, so why not be 56 and be a nurse? So I got my LVN last year and she's a nurse."
I love that one. I love that one. We think that, we had a lot of people talk about retirement too. Just we think that there's this point where age is supposed to stop us from wanting to learn and grow, and throw that belief out the window completely, because don't ever stop learning. Don't ever stop growing and finding things you love and you have passion for. I love that one.
So, I did that. And I got to tell you, I talked myself out of something once. And this is what's so ridiculous about it. Now that I have hindsight, I was 40 and I was thinking about going to law school. So I was a reporter. I had this thought in my head. I figured I probably want to be a prosecutor. And so it was going to be this, okay, so go to law school, 3 years, but since you're doing it part-time, might be longer, then get a job in the DA's office, and you're going to have to take crappy cases for a couple of years. And then I have this figure that I'm going to be 46 years old at least before I get really good cases. And that just seemed like I was going to be 100 years old, so I never did it. Well, truth is, 46 was so young and I didn't know it. Now, if I had done it, I wouldn't have been an author and a speaker, and I wouldn't be on this podcast. So I think the greater plan definitely worked more toward my strengths. But when you're partway there, you can make really huge changes in your life. And I know someone who was mid-50s and she went to graduate school to get a master's degree in something that would help her. And it's just not too late.
No.
And Grandma Moses didn't even start painting until she's what, in her 80s?
Something.
Or was it 70s? She was really old, and I'm not done. Are you done?
No. Like I want to, we got to write my book. I want to write my book. I want to
do that this year.
I was thinking about that
publicly commit. Come on, everybody, write it.
No, I want to say yes. And I think what I'm hesitant about is I need to see my breakdown of the plan, that in 12 months or whatever, I have a book ready, then I've got to reverse engineer it and build it into my plan. So that's really what I know. I need to know what are the baby steps.
Maybe I should do a podcast on how to write a book, because I've written 9 and I'm at the point where I don't think I want to write another one. I would prefer it be trashy beach fiction. So that might be what you see.
But you're also doing some different things, like with you're going to do course this year,
Oh yeah, no, I'm not.
So you've got all this stuff that's maybe a different modality of the book.
It is. I feel like I've written a bunch more. I hoped in my life to write a book, and then I thought, I hope I can write 2. But I don't know the difference between 9 and 10. It's just, they're all a bunch of books. And I love my books. And I like my last one, I really felt compelled to write it. But I do like the idea of writing a nice trashy beach novel. So
I think you need to go
what
for
I
it.
do. I mean, why not? So I think, Michelle, I think you should do that. Okay, let's see who else. Janine Rivas. Know what it is you want out of a job, friends, life, and don't settle until you get what you need to be happy. It may take some time and be difficult not to compromise, but be true to yourself and you will get what it is you need. Oh, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
It's so true, is that a lot of people live their lives on autopilot and don't consciously steer their way so that they get what it is they need and really want. And if that's you, go to our LinkedIn pages and see our stuff. But truly, if that is you, that you're on autopilot, Well, then, my friend, you're in a rut, and you don't belong in a rut, and you don't need to settle. Life can be as filled with as much living as you possibly want. Hello, Sonny. Oh, my dog has come to say hello to everybody. But no, life can be as full and enriching as you possibly can dream. But all you have to do is let yourself dream. And it's just that inertia. People live their lives like many people do about not going to the gym. Oh, I don't want to go to the gym. Well, it's the same thing people do that with their lives, is they don't take that step to actively say, what do I need to do differently so that I don't have to live like that? And it's like cleaning out the closet. You just start.
Yep. That was one of my lessons was that I hear over and over, one of the podcasts that I love to listen to, and that's belief follows action.
Yeah.
Do the action.
Yeah.
You'll begin to believe what's possible.
And anything.
Don't wait for the belief, because then you do not, there's the rut. That's what causes that rut.
Well, I think sometimes people have the belief. I think that's a variable, but I don't think you wait for it. I think the better thing is when you were talking about that whole idea of starting ugly.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, people starting ugly is that you just don't wait. You just get it started. And when Michelle and I were starting the podcast, we'd recorded a number of episodes. And then I had the cycling accident that gave me the head injury that made me unable to work. And it was a nightmare. And then, we've got this and we've been working and working. And then finally I just said, let's just let it go. Let's just start. And we thought it was really ugly. And you know what? It wasn't. And you know what? It all worked out. And here we are almost at the end of our 4th season, which is a huge achievement, I think, because we could have sat there waiting and waiting for perfect timing. Yes. Am I ready? Will I be able to do it? And you know what? The world is filled with unfinished projects. But you finish. You just start. You just believe in yourself enough for that.
Tweak as you go.
Yeah. Jeremy Fron, it's easier to complain than appreciate. Boy, that's the truth. That is the truth. And there are a lot of people who are expert at complaining about things. And what?
I was going to say, yeah, there are a lot of people who are experts at complaining.
Yeah,
I try to limit the number of those people that get my time and energy.
Like George Edmondson here, write it down. Don't trust your memory, even for a minute. Well, I love that. George is my old boss. And so he's a little older than me. And yeah, your memory starts to play games on you. But I have found through my life, sometimes writing things down has been the best self-protection for anything. It's you're not only just documenting things that are happening, but you're remembering conversations, could be personal conversations that you need to be mindful of so that you know that you're arguing the right things and that you've got your head on straight with it. And so I'm always taking notes on conversations, things like that. Remember that. Connie Chesner, this one was good. Boundaries are a signal of love and respect, not anger or division. I must want to stay in a relationship with you to honor you with a boundary where we can both continue. And if I don't, then I can just walk away.
Those were like mic drop. That's like mic drop advice or lessons right there.
Is that power?
Mm-hmm.
Connie, I'm proud of you. You did great with that one. Because that is true.
And getting out of our own head, thinking that boundaries are anger and division, because sometimes we stop ourselves from creating. I mean, I'm speaking from my own experience, right? Mm-hmm. That, it was selfish or rude or inconsiderate to have boundaries. And oh my gosh, I'm learning that the things are so much better. It doesn't mean it's easy to create them in a relationship that they didn't exist before. That doesn't mean it's an easy process, but it's such a healthier, happier connection with someone when you can create those.
Yeah. And no is a complete sentence. You don't have to apologize. My brother did this years ago. He started telling people that won't be possible. If, they'd ask something and people get so put off by that line, that won't be possible, that they don't want to say, well, why? They're just like, huh? They stop and they go away. So I think that's great. That won't be possible. Boundaries. I love putting boundaries in place, right? Which is like Pamela Nickerson Ostfjord. If I just butchered your name, I'm so sorry, because this is really great. Choose your path or it will choose you.
Oh, yeah. Choose your path or it will choose you.
Right. So that's a real boundary one. And, for the rest of them, there's a lot, but we need to wind down and tell you all that this can be a great year. This can be your year. Just turn off the autopilot. Yes. Make up your mind that this is your year and do the steps you need to do the heavy lifting, because the heavy lifting is easier than doing nothing. If you need the visual of my messy closet, think about that. All the energy that took me for 3 years. And it just took 3 hours to completely change everything, to make up my mind. I'm cleaning up this mess. And if your life's a mess, stop and take the steps that you need, the baby steps. And go to LinkedIn, check out what Michelle's got, what I've got, and we will see you all year with more hard-won wisdom. We're so glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining us. Michelle, I love you.
I love you. Thank you, everyone. Happy 2023, and we are wishing you only the best vibes.
For sure. Bye, everybody.
Thank you for joining the Hard-Won Wisdom Podcast with best-selling author Fawn Germer and corporate innovator Michelle Brigman. Join us weekly for career and life-changing conversations with some of today's most influential thought leaders, senior executives, and trailblazers who will share their mentoring wisdom. This podcast is brought to you by the Women's Leadership Network. Visit hardwonwisdom.com for more on this podcast and for links to Fawn and Michelle's web pages and social media. Also, be sure to rate, subscribe, and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort, and we'll see you next week.